Whoops, my bad. Forgot to add the actual stream onto the stream here. So here we are actually with Hardcore Uprising by Aaron.
All right, hello, folks. Aaron, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
Awesomeness.
Oh.
This is going to be interesting, all right?
Oh, yes, it is.
Just a quick reintroduction from me. Hi, Tempest Mask 1000 here. You might have seen me do Gungrave earlier. I'm pretty well versed when it comes to hardcore Uprising commentary. I'm also a 2B runner of this game as well. And I have definitely done my part for enough of Aaron's event runs. This is going to be my first time doing a blindfolded run for him, but yeah, I'll do my best. I have notes, I have generally everything I need to know. Aaron, when it comes to this game, he is definitely one of the top runners of the game, if not the top runner. In fact, yes, he's done quite a lot for this game. It's absolutely incredible. And having come up with the blindfolded strats, you're gonna see this is just gonna be like a very fun way of getting to end day 2, if I do say so myself. Anything you'd like to say before you deafen up, Aaron?
Oh, wish me luck in the laboratory.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting stage. All right.
Oh yeah.
All right.
I believe in you. Let's get this show on the road. Oh, I believe in myself.
Heck yeah.
Right,
that's the positive mental attitude we need. All right, yep. So as we are setting up, I do want to mention that Hardcore Uprising, for starters, is a Konami Digital Entertainment piece, meaning that while there is no physical version of this game, per se, it is still very much available on the original platforms they launched for, those, of course, being PlayStation 3, which I know that Digital Store has gone through a bit of heck, put family friendly, but it is still reportedly possible to get that game. Of course, emulation is perfectly allowed, so if you wish to do it that way, that is perfectly acceptable as well. There's also the Xbox 360 version, which in that case, that version is backward compatible with the Xbox One family, as well as the Xbox Series S and Series X. Of course, Aaron will be running on a One S, which is my personal platform as well. And yeah, time will begin once Aaron gains control of the character. So once we get out of that loading screen, and then once Sayuri touches the ground from the helicopter, which she will drop from, that is going to be the start of the run. So we'll see how this all plays out. Now, of course, Aaron is just making sure to quickly finalize the setup and ensure that he will not be able to see or potentially, well, I mean, he'll obviously have to hear because he's going to need a few audio cues and stuff like that. But other than that, he'll be making sure that he can hear the game. And that's about it. All right, so we'll start this in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so welcome to Hardcore Uprising. This game itself is a prequel to Contra Hardcore of the same name, a game which you might recognize for the Sega Genesis. It's a pretty hard game, and so too can this one, but this game also has a few modes to it as well to its name. Arcade mode and Rising mode, and this is actually being conducted through Rising mode. And the reason for this is because a blindfolded run of a game that can be pretty punishing and give you limited continues can be pretty dangerous. But with the effect of Rising mode allowing the character that you play as to have not only upgrades, but also the ability to gain a lot more lives, it's a lot safer this way. Take my word for it. So, as one can probably understand, Rising mode does see a lot more activity, and Sayuri is a character. She is actually one of 3 DLC packs that are still very much accessible to this day, alongside other characters such as Leviathan, who we will be seeing him, actually, in the second stage. And then we also have... oh gosh, why am I skipping out on his name? Give me a second. We also have Harley Daniels. That's right, Harley Daniels. I knew it was a two-worder. But yeah, Aaron is already at the halfway point of this section and has so far reached what is going to be the first vehicle section of just a couple of times, really. This game does not have a whole too much of that stuff going on. But as you can see right here, we've got a bit of a boss fight, right? And this guy obviously just tries to jump around and get us with his flamethrower. Not too much else to it. So now that Aaron has taken care of this guy, we are also going to come across a bit of a jump section, which if he wants to avoid losing a life, he will have to time his jump properly, get off, and about now. Nicely done. All right, and just like that, we are also jumping right into the first main boss of the stage. This is going to be the Lotus Worm. This boss has a few particular attacks, mainly generating on the little segments that make up its body. But the main weak point is going to be the head, and with Sayuri's hot knife through butter blade, there is not going to be much of a chance for this guy at all. He's just going to go down pretty quickly, nice and easy. And with that, we have one more vehicle section before the end of this first stage. So, apparently the guy that got eaten up from earlier that we took him on, yeah, he's not dead yet. So, obviously we got to do more bike. Now, I will say that Aaron was indeed hoping to have lined up to where he landed after the first section, which he successfully got. And this way, it would allow taking out the head to be easier. The one thing to keep in mind about that little center section, though, is you want to consider the fact that it is quicksand. Stay too far in there and you will sink through. Alright, one more helicopter section to go, and ooh, not quite. But the good news is that because there are extra lives, we do still complete the stage by technicality. I know he was trying to go for the helicopter, though, just for the sake of swag, and I don't blame him. It's not the easiest to do when you cannot see. The whole idea being that you just need to grab onto it to complete the level. But that was still a pretty good showcase of the first stage, no problem. Alright, mission number 2. We are now entering a jungle section, the obligatory Konami jungle of sorts. Actually, that's the fun thing about this game. I'm going to state right away that this game was actually made by Arc System Works. So if you're familiar with the art style of wonderfully digital, potentially hand-drawn, but yes, particularly we are looking at some beautiful sprite work on some 3D background, and yeah, no, if you're probably familiar with that sort of spiel from stuff like Guilty Gear and stuff like that, and yeah, it looks absolutely beautiful here. By the way, I do want to apologize if stream feed might be showing signs of slowing down. No problem. Game's still coming through though, just fine. But yeah, basically I'll be the eyes on the sky if something indeed goes wrong. So far, we're looking pretty good. Now, that crocodile right there is an example of like some of the nefarious traps within the stage. So particularly if they grab you, they will try to drag you down. Now, it's if he does fall into the water, it's a hunt to find his way back. So it can be a bit rough if he does not immediately know where to go. The good news about how many lives Aaron does have, though, is that, as you can see, it started off at 30. And this was a clear-cut reference to the Konami code, the famous Konami code. This is probably one of the last upgrades you're probably going to be able to build up. And how you do so, in terms of Rising Mode upgrades to build those up, it's through what we call core points, or what the game calls core points. And how it works is for each enemy you destroy, you will gain more core points depending on the score multiplier that you have going, or the combo multiplier that you have going. So this boss is actually one of the best grind points to do this, and it's mostly through the way of those crocodiles, because of course not only are they constantly respawning, but they come back fast enough that it's not too hard to keep your combo alive and well. Alright, nicely done. So now that copter boss is down and out, Aaron is making his way through a bit more of a foggier section, and there's going to be a few more jumps and hurdles to get over. But once that is taken care of, we will be moving on to the main boss of Stage 2. And earlier I did mention that we were going to see one of the playable characters, Leviathan. So the story of this game is that we are part of a resistance group. We are here to take on the Commonwealth Empire, and Leviathan here actually works for them. So you're probably wondering, how the heck did he become a protagonist? That is a good question in itself, but apparently he was a friend and former comrade of one of the playable characters that you start off in the base game, Bahamut. Now, Leviathan himself is piloting these mechs called Knights, and Knights Persia is going to go down pretty fast, but the idea behind this fight is that once he starts to disappear, he's going to either appear from the upper left, upper right, bottom left, or bottom right, and it's all going to depend on what he decides to do next that Aaron will be able to find him, which luckily he did do a dash to make his way up, like so. And that was a pretty good stage 2. All right, cool. So, for anyone that has played a traditional Contra game, you are probably familiar with the fact that it's usually a one hit you're dead scenario. But here in Hardcore Uprising, it's a little different, right? We are clearly looking at the whole idea of a health bar. The reason for this is it actually takes after the Japanese version of Contra Hardcore, which had the same thing going. So that's why Sayuri here, as well as the other characters, are able to take multiple hits before they technically die. Now, if you were to play as a gunner character, the main difference being that you actually have the ability to collect different gun profiles. Like, the traditional spread shot, there's the laser shot, there's the rapid fire stuff. Stuff that you may have seen in other Contra games before. Well, like with most Contra games, you tend to lose that gun if you get hit. So, yeah, that's not too fun. But luckily, Rising Mode does offer an upgrade where that gets mitigated, assuming that the damage you take is not going to send you into knockback. The reason for that is because damage that you take in midair guarantees you to be in knockback. But if you take a hard enough hit on the ground, it might send you into knockback. At least that's what I remember anyway. So that was a good job with the first portion of the main boss, but it's not quite done yet. It will be back soon. Overall, we have a series of ruins that Aaron is now going through, and you're going to see a bit of a trap room that's very reminiscent to Indiana Jones. But right now, speaking of Indiana Jones, we want to see this boulder crush the wall, and there we go. We got some spike walls here that he's going to climb up. So Sayuri can run up the walls, can also climb them, just like the other characters can. And, yeah, not too much else to currently mention going on right now. I will say that Hardcore Uprising, though, was intended to be the first game of essentially a series of games. Like, this was supposed to not just be like a reboot for Contra, but also its own series of stuff. And sadly, we have not seen any new hardcore games since. So while this is currently the only one of its kind, who knows? If enough interest is gathered, maybe one of these days we just might have it see the light of day. We don't know if it ever was in production in the first place. We don't necessarily know what the plans would have been, but we can certainly say that this game is indeed a spiritual prequel to the original Contra as well as Hardcore. And that's why we're going to see a certain character within a particular level that bears a similar resemblance to a certain bad guy from the Genesis game. But for now, we're going to go back to the main boss from earlier, which transforms from the Tigress to the Draconis. And this boss is going to go down once Aaron sees its weak point, but for now, it's currently going through a series of weaponry. The general gist of the fight is that you are fighting on top of the boss, but there's also a bit of a raft thing that suddenly, goes away just like that. And then here's the weak point. Once that's down, Aaron will want to jump onto the helicopter. And that's the end of the stage. Nicely done. All right, cool. So that's yet another mission complete. By the way, shout out to the waterfall section from earlier. We like to consider that a callback to Contra 1, but in sort of a reverse situation where instead of climbing up the waterfall, you're obviously going down it, which is pretty funny. All right, so now we are moving into the mission 4, which is basically an entire auto-scroller. So the idea is that Aaron will have to survive these oncoming police cars from the Commonwealth that are trying to run him over. And as we go through, we will eventually reach some bosses, but basically this is straightforward as can be. At least in terms of the normal run. Now, because this is an auto scroller, Aaron has to really keep in mind as much timing as he possibly can sort of memorize and keep in mind because overall what's really going to matter the most is being able to do his setups for the bosses. But right now, what matters more is just trying to keep your positioning in mind and then taking care of things one by one. Like you see him making use of Sayuri's Blade Wave to take out the helicopters. Right now, though, we have our first mini boss coming up. This thing is pretty much already dead. Yeah, it's just a little turret thing. It tried its best, but sadly, not meant to be. Okay, so far looking pretty good. Yeah, we've already got some more drones coming in and some more cars coming through, except they're gonna crash into each other because pandemonium has arisen. And if it looks like there are some moments where he should have gotten hit, chances are this is actually the work of the ninja jump, which is another one of the upgrades that you can get for Rising mode. And how it works is that as long as you are ascending in the midst of your jump, and let me repeat that, as long as you are ascending, you will be invincible. So basically, you'll still potentially get hit if you when you're like falling down, but in terms of the first person to jump, you're just fine. Air dashing, by the way, is also a native feature to this game, and you can get upgrades to do even more of those. You can also get upgrades for your health, your attack power, stuff like that. It's pretty simple stuff as can be. But yeah, so far he's feeling pretty good about this, and I don't blame him. This has been looking really good. Now, under the worst case scenario that a game over were to happen, there are still continues in mind, but it is well worth mentioning that Hardcore Uprising, we timed this by IGT. So what you're seeing RTA wise won't necessarily matter in terms of the long run of things. Whether or not he gets a PB is all determinant on what we get to see in the final mission complete results screen. So I just figured it's worth bringing that up right now because if it looks like he's taking a bit of time on the pre-level menu, it's probably him just taking a moment to basically set up and just compose for the next stage. Overall, though, things are looking pretty good. Yeah, okay, he seems to get the timing just right for those police cars trying to get him with the electric little crosswire. We got one coming up from the top. All right. Nicely done. And jumps over that barricade of cars. We also got that one on fire, which has inevitably set off the sprinkler system here. Now we're going through a checkpoint, and this is where things get a little more interesting because we have the second level boss, or sorry, boss of the level. This guy, he's going to be on the lookout for tire screeches. And the idea is to try and get this thing's health down fast before it gets the chance to try and attack him, which he succeeds very nicely. He's just got to now go ahead and okay, he chooses to jump over the thing. As you can see right there, the game also does prompt you to duck under it, which is another thing you can do. But obviously, he opted for the swag, which I don't blame him. All right, so as you can see, whenever those little green things fly around, Aaron can destroy those for mostly they spawn gun power-ups, but in Sayuri's case, she doesn't have different modes of fire, so they really mean nothing to her. But sometimes there might be a health pack, and those can be nice. Okay, main boss time here. This is the Lux Corona, and this is going to have multiple phases, as you can tell right there. We've got all these little guns on the outside, so to speak, or rather, not guns, but these little core points. And yeah, there are guns loaded around this entire laser wheel. Aaron is going to try and destroy all of these little green crystals, which will then open up the ring, and then he'll go for the next series of weak points, while also trying to avoid fire from the inside, because as you're noticing, for each little green crystal-y thingy that he destroys, a gun appears in its place. So this boss doesn't necessarily let up. You can destroy those too, by the way, so yeah, just a thing to keep in mind if you decide to I don't know, destroy all this thing's targets. But yeah, we're currently in phase 2 now, and inside the green orbs that you're seeing this thing fire, he hopes for them to move up into the right spot so that he can then perform a slash and aim slash and fire mix as he basically writes it down. We're moving into phase 3, which is the mecha phase. Now, this boss is going through multiple cycles as the health bar goes down, and the reason for that is because each cycle has a different attack pattern. So we just saw a little spin at first, moving into this little three-dimensional spin. Now we had a brief up and down moment. And this is where you really want to test your depth perception here in the fourth set of attacks, followed by the fifth and final, but he's already down, and that's stage 4. So we are now halfway through the game. There are 8 missions in total. This is where things get interesting, though, because stage 5, if you were to play casually, you can, I repeat, you can engage in a stealth section that the game tries to throw your way. But obviously, with this being a speed run, we're just not going to bother. So one thing Aaron is going to keep in mind, despite the whole alarm blaring out and about, is he's using the door breaks as sound cues. And he'll also use climbing the stairs as a sound cue as well. And then eventually he'll be running through some moving platforms to get to the top of an area to reach a mini-boss. For now, though, he's currently trying to go through what is essentially the remains of this stealth section. And it is possible to reset the stealth if you keep yourself out of sight from the enemies for long enough. But, of course, we really don't have to. It's not necessary at all. So he did get knocked back a little bit, and he is trying to find his way back up, but he has definitely found it. It's not that hard to just climb up and stuff, and I do believe that there are some distinct sound cues for when you're moving on the ceiling as well. So, yeah. Overall, this game is not that hard to do blindfolded. It's just a matter of trying to know your positioning and keeping things going as smoothly as possible. So now we've moved into the factory section. You can see these conveyor belts with all these things dropping out. We had boxes at first, then we had enemies. Now we have these cranes trying to grab us as if we are the very thing that they are trying to operate on. More boxes because, hey, why the heck not? It's a factory. They're clearly trying to work on something. The real reason we're here and infiltrating this place, though, is we are trying to rescue a scientist by the name of Dr. Geo Mandrake. Now, if that sounds a little familiar, you've probably heard a character of the same name in the original hardcore. And I do want to advise that while it's not fully confirmed whether or not this is the same guy who can potentially be the bad guy in that game, it's more than likely the same guy. Just not as we'd know it here, because obviously he's someone who is currently working for the Commonwealth Empire, but obviously wants to defect from them and is willing to give us any information on what exactly they're working on. Other than that, that was the mini-boss that I mentioned earlier. He had 2 phases where once he was on low health, he'll destroy the floor, there's a bit of a falling section, and then Aaron had to finish the fight from down below. And yeah, that was pretty much it. So now we have more factory, more lava, and we are now entering the further part of the laboratory. Now, inside those crystal cases are these enemies, which normally, if you avoid destroying those, you don't necessarily have to unleash them. But of course, in a speedrun where we are trying to find our way out and about without the need of sight, then there's a bit of merit in actually destroying them. So now we have saved Dr. Geo Mandrake, and that's him all the way behind us. Yes, this is an escort mission, which might seem a little out of place for a game like this, and you'd probably be right. But either way, our objective is to try and get him out of here. And we are hoping... I know this is the stage that Aaron is hoping he'll get some decent luck for, but the idea is that we have to get Sayuri and Geo up these stairs, up to the different floors, and then eventually we will reach the extraction point where a helicopter will get the good doctor out of here. But if he takes too much damage, the game will automatically focus the camera to him, where you see him undergoing this like hurt animation, and he'll soon get back up, but after the fact is when you lose your life. So if he goes down, it's an automatic lose a life situation, and that's never fun. But it looks like he is cooperating right now, which is always good to see. And we have reached the extraction point, so we are good. That was definitely a lucky stage 5 right there. But we are not fully out of here just yet. We still have the main boss to take care of. And if you are familiar with Contra, you usually would expect an alien to show up. Well, we don't necessarily have outright extraterrestrials, but this game gives us the next best thing with this fella right here, which is the Celestial Imperator. Now, you'll notice these two robotic arms that have just spawned from the side. Aaron wants to deal damage to both of them in order for the next phase to proceed, and then eventually the main body itself will join the fray. Once it does, we are going to slash until it goes down. Ooh, taking a bit of fire damage though, that's never fun. Oh, pardon me there. Alright. And assuming that was enough damage. Oh, so we got some electric bars coming up. So that's actually going to make this a little bit harder to handle. Yeah, so we're going to have to see another death here, but eventually Aaron, yeah, okay, so at that point Aaron should have realized by now that he is indeed fallen off the stage, so now he is going to reposition himself to the right, which is where the remaining arm is, and there we go. Okay, cool. So now the main body has officially joined the fray. We can take care of the arms if we want to, but yeah, by the first one going down, and Aaron realizing he still has a bit of control, and then he's probably going to test, yeah, okay, so he's going to confirm right there that he has fallen off to the right of the stage and now wants to move closer to the middle. Now, as you can see, these electric bars that keep on floating, that could make this stage, or rather this fight of the stage, a little more disorienting when you're not able to really see, because you can just get knocked back and you're trying to question where you suddenly landed up. So he's doing a pretty good job, though, trying to keep things under control. It's going to take a little bit of time before he can fully get the Imperator's health down. But he is making use of the charge beam slashes to try and fire directionally, so he's got a means of hitting the thing. It's just a matter of trying to get that health all the way down, and that's about it. Oh, looks like we got some slashes going. Okay, so we are pretty close to taking him down. I'm just gonna let him finish things up. Oh, almost. There we go. Nice. And that's going to take care of stage 5. So yeah, the force pushes to line up with the left arm, and utilizing the sound cues, that was all part of the plan. And overall, we managed to do a pretty good job despite all the pure chaos that also ensued throughout most of the level in itself. Okay, moving into stage 6. So we got yet another auto-scroller level coming up. And folks, I hope you like trains, because I know I most certainly do. So this is going to be all about knowing where to fire, and then dodging some fire turrets, because taking that fire damage is never fun in this game. But you'll see what I mean once we get up to that. For now, you basically have this train just moving up, about, and all that jazz. We got some more helicopters. These train cars themselves can take damage. If they take enough damage, they will start to turn red before they explode. Alright, so... yeah, okay. So that's the fire turrets right there. Alright, not too bad otherwise. Okay. Still taking a bit of damage, but at least he's keeping himself on the train cart, which is honestly not the worst thing to happen. Because, of course, if he falls off, then that's going to be an instant death and a loss of one of the lives that he's got, which, reminder, if he does game over, he will have to use a continues. So it's not to say that the run's over if he games over. It's just one of those inconveniences. So now we've moved to the part of the track where another train shows up, and now we have 3 more platforms to go through. And as you're about to see with the bottom platform on the middle car, that just exploded. And so too had the bottom soon after. So that's just an example of how if those cars take too much damage, then that'll happen before another one eventually rejoins, and the one behind it will take its place. Same for the engine as well, which is kind of interesting because it like shows a little transformation sequence of how that car becomes the front line. And then eventually the bottom train goes down, rest in peace, and then it's just riding up the top train before another one comes down. And the point of this mission is that Sayuri is essentially taking this to reach the Commonwealth's main headquarters. That was actually a very nice recovery right there. I don't necessarily know if Sayuri went onto the tracks, but it sure looked like it. So, that was interesting. But yeah, it seemed as though he quickly had gotten up from that, which is absolutely phenomenal. Alright. So now we are coming up to, in a minute or two, our next mini-boss, which is a pretty annoying giant mecha. Although it won't necessarily start out in its mecha form, but yeah, it'll be a big guy that has... I'm honestly, honestly, I haven't even thought about this guy in a while, that I'm honestly forgetting some of the details behind him. But I guess it's also my mind trying to suppress just how annoying he can be sometimes, too. So I'll just bring him up again once he's actually shown up, because I totally forgot that we still had a bit more track to handle as well. Alright, here we go. So, boss is coming up. And yeah, this guy right here, we needed to destroy that little gun drone before that thing then decides, alright, I'm going to take you seriously, and then turns into the mech form, which outright destroys the back car. Excuse my stuttering there. And then we just slash its weak point before this thing eventually falls apart and explodes. And just like that, Aaron is now going to be moving into the main boss of this level, which is now going to take place on a vertical track. And how the heck these trains are able to keep a hold of this thing, don't ask me, but it's clearly some sort of futuristic technology, because apparently this game takes place in the 26th century. So, yeah, there's that. Okay, so now we have the Arachne. And don't worry, this thing is not spider-like as the name might imply, at least not visually speaking. But it essentially tries to hold onto the wall. Its legs are modular enough that it's going to be able to spread apart like so when we get to the point where the track becomes a bit wider, and it ended up going into its phase 2 with the gun. But yeah, again, Sayuri slashing things like it's nobody's business. Bosses hardly become a threat in this run at all. So the added extra challenge of trying to locate where you are is honestly where the action is all at, and then some. Okay, now for the Capitol Tower building. Stage 7. This is pretty simple as things can get, at least on surface level in terms of being a Contra level. We suddenly had the train crash up from the ground to make a rather dramatic entrance as we head inside the tower itself. And we will be seeing Leviathan make a return as the level goes on to what would be the final section of that stage. Excuse me there. And right now he's just cutting through some soldiers, trying to run. Now, one thing he's going to keep in mind is that this stage does have a few difficulty spikes. So he is going to have to remember those once he comes up to them. But for now, we're coming up to our first vertical climb of sorts. Not necessarily a climb, though, more like an elevator section, but if you want to actually see some climbing, we will be seeing that soon. Right now we got these missiles, though, trying to destroy those elevators, which, not sure why they would do that. That's kind of rude, if I do say so. I mean, yes, elevators are not living things, but they certainly have the right to operate, and you would think that even if your mortal enemy is standing on them, you give them the right of passage to at least complete their journey, but nope. They're just trying to throw everything in the kitchen sink at you to stop you at this point. A plot-worthy note about Sayuri herself, by the way, is she's actually the adopted daughter of the Commonwealth's own leader, the Emperor Tiberius. So she's actually got a bit of a personal stake in this whole fight, in that her adoptive father is primary enemy number 1, so. If you check out the little blurbs before a level starts, you can get the whole lowdown behind the story and what's exactly going on in that moment. But now we have this wall climb, which Aaron clears through pretty quickly. Nicely done. And you might have noticed that those little electric beams were something he was, like, passing through, right? That's just the overall spacing, allowing the player to climb through it without much trouble. There will be some ones that are tighter to the wall, though. So coming up here is this climb, which, okay, so we do got the helicopter spawn. That is a little expected, though, because if this were the normal run, and if he were able to see, he would actually try to use a death warp, which would allow him to go further up the tower by the time the character respawns, and would prevent the spawn of that helicopter, which of course would lock the camera until it's destroyed. But yeah, here he's going to have to fight him, and yeah, we got another one right there. Okay, so now back to the wall. Those umbrella platformer minions are pretty self-explanatory. Destroy the minion, the umbrella goes away. Be mindful of that. So here we got more elevators. And then more missiles to destroy those elevators. Because apparently you just can't seem to appreciate a piece of convenient technology. Despite the fact that, yes, your enemy might be using them, but come on. How are you supposed to get this thing back and running if, assuming you were able to defeat your mortal enemy? I mean, that just makes it inconvenient for your employees. But yeah, the elevators are gone, so Aaron has to do all this platforming on these missiles, which do eventually explode. But yeah, so far, really nice. Okay, so now we are moving back into some more ground. And then soon we will be reaching the first of a couple of bosses within the stage. So yes, as I mentioned, Leviathan will be returning, and he's got 2 phases, particularly the human phase. Oh, by the way, that's Tiberius. Say hello to Tiberius. There's Leviathan. He's gonna sick him on us, and then everything's going on fire. So yeah, more vertical climbing, and this is essentially a glorified chase section. So Aaron will have to use sound cues and keep in mind the same pattern that goes out and about. And alright, so that right there was indeed an instance of a game over, but like I said, we did have continues, so he was able to keep things going from where he left off, which was luckily right before this boss section. So hey, all's good. Now it's time to boogie once again. Everything's once again on fire, and the climb continues. And now that that continue has been popped, he will be back to the full amount of lives that he had before. And so, not much to say, because all he really has to do is chase after Leviathan and deal enough damage to him in order for the level to proceed on. But yeah, otherwise we got all these hallways. Now I'd like to take a moment to thank Mediocres for having this run accepted, and for anybody that is curious about speedrunning any Contra game out there, we do have the Contra speedrunning community Discord, which you can find the links to on the leaderboards. So if you'd like to try your hand at any of the games, be it the stuff that was released for home consoles, handhelds, like the PSP titles, and all that jazz, chances are we got it there. We even have the more recent Rogue Core game for modern platforms at the time. The only thing is that I don't believe we officially have a leaderboard for runs conducted by the Anniversary Collection, so do keep that in mind if you want to pick up some of the older stuff that said collection does cover. But yeah, that's Leviathan right there. He's now running away. And where we saw the Knight Persia from stage 2, he's going to summon another one, but this time with an even bigger sword. Only one problem. Leviathan is not the Black Swordsman Guts himself. So despite how cool that Knight Lunata looks, he's not going to get the better of our skills. It's all about that good old slice and dice. Okay, so now we got a boss that can be rather infamous, casually speaking, called the Cerberus. Only one thing, it's not actually a dog. This thing simply has multiple heads and is practically a bit of an alien-looking abomination, or demonic-looking abomination. So, despite the name, not really the lovable mythological creature that you may know from Hades. The weak point is going to be the upper body itself, or at least the exposed portion of it anyhow. And this thing, if given the chance, can not only move along like a bit of a slinky, but also try to cover the weak spot by slamming down onto the ground. Which it looks like it's going to do right here. But yeah, Aaron was nicely positioned to avoid much of a disruption. And by using those duck slashes, that's it for stage 7. So now we are moving into the final mission, stage 8, where we are making chase to Emperor Tiberius, who's officially left with his little air fleet. And we are trying to finish this fight once and for all. Alright, so remember how we earlier in stage 1 had the bike section? Well, it's back for one final hurrah. Now, in stage 8, everything that is coming at Aaron is basically out to kill him. And if this looks impressive to you, then yeah, it should, because remember, he cannot see. He can only hear.
Biker mice to Mars.
I'm not quite sure what he was saying here, but I think that was a reference to something that I myself might have mentioned the last time I might have brought up in a commentary for this game. Shoutouts to... Oh man, I forgot who to give the shout out to. I'm sorry. Dang. I feel a little bad for messing that shout out up. Oh well. So, we are back on our feet. And we are trying to go through all these minions, these weapons. Those little blue and red portal-like gate things are actually reflectors that try to absorb your basic projectiles and then fire them back at you. But now we got a ceiling that's going to try and crush him by moving up and down. Okay, so unfortunately that missile did get him, but he is using these death warps to reposition himself and get an idea of where he is. And if he does die to the ceiling, he will have to wait for it to go back up before he regains control of the character. In a way, this does help because in that case the game is trying to look for some safe ground in order to then bring the character back on. But other than that, we have the laser cannons, which are trying to orbital drop at him. Not actually orbital drop, but like space laser him, basically. So yeah, another death warp right there to get him back up. Now he's going to go through a bit of a climb up to this elevator, which will now take him up to the ship's engine. And it's at this point that we have effectively gone into what is going to be our final 4 bosses. So this right here, the Vitus engine, is going to go through a few different sort of standardish phases, meaning that what you're seeing is not necessarily RNG, it's just step A, step B, and then it cycles back and forth through each little weak point that he's destroying. Or rather, these drones, I should rather say. And it's at this point that I think I'm starting to run out of things to say, which is probably the worst time for any kind of commentary, but yeah. So I think I'm just going to give myself a little bit of hush time, and I'm just going to let you all witness this awesomeness as we are now trying to destroy these pillars, and then you will start to see the engine core itself trying to roll at Aaron like a bowling ball, and he's going to just hit it back and forth. So let's see how that all goes in just a moment. Alright, so now that the Vitus engine is done, the ship is officially going to start going into exploding mode, for lack of a better term. Meanwhile, we have a confrontation with our adoptive father himself, so Tiberius is going to be our final boss, and this is the final stretch of level within the game, where we got some more missiles firing, some more enemies coming up. And, yeah. So now we've moved on to the first phase of Tiberius, which is, as Aaron puts, just going to be some easy slashing going on. Where, as you can see right now, he's attempting to use his attacks, but he can't even get them on because for each quarter that Aaron, for each section before the stun that happens, Aaron is knocking him out of that attack. All right, phase 1 of the final forms, Tiberius Augustus. So he jumps over the shockwave because in trying to stomp his foot down, Tiberius is trying to launch you. And then with that little appendage that he sticks into the wall, you obviously climb on it, and then he tries to shoot the fireballs. And then as you can see right there, he wasn't immediately defeated. Aaron was continuously slashing at him anyway, but the idea was that you do land one more hit on him to officially defeat him after he's sort of finished that little wind down animation for his low health state. All right, here comes the final boss.
Uh-oh.
This is where things can get really chaotic for a blindfolded run because it's all about falling platforms from here. We got all this debris coming down, all these helicopter bodies. And he's going to have to try and find where the boss appears because Tiberius, obviously not one to give up, goes into Tiberius Invictus, and he can do one of a few attacks. He can either stay within the middle, or he can go to the sides. And he's got a few ways of doing this. He can shoot fire breaths or projectiles, or he can land a punch, which is he's going to punch right now. But he's almost out of health, so as long as Aaron does a good job of locating him one final time, which, yeah, he's back to the center, so there you go. All right, so that's not time just yet, but time will be once Sayuri gets on the helicopter one last time. And we know for a fact that it's going to appear on the right side, so we just have to wait for it to appear. That's obviously going to be a sound cue in itself. But one final little animation from Tiberius, who is now dead as a doornail. And time. GG, Aaron. Nicely done. Good stuff. All right, as he now takes off the apparatus. Oh my god. Is that what I think it is? Hang on a sec. Let's see that time right there. Hold on, I gotta see this for myself. 46. 46:52. Okay, so dang, he was actually pretty close to breaking his world record on that one.
52 seconds.
52 seconds over it. Yeah. That was still really good, though.
Alien got me. Alien got me.
Yeah, Alien got
It
you.
was the alien. But I'm just surprised that I pulled out a 46.
Yeah, I know. That's still impressive. Very nicely done. Very nicely done, man. Great showcase.
I was surprised that I got the first jump.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. All right. Well.
Oh, my God.
That's the power of believing.
Yeah,
No, seriously, that was impressive. I can only hope that my commentary did that justice, because let me tell you, that was certainly...
I can't wait to hear it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
All I know is that when I was getting to the final boss, I heard your, anyways, and I was like, please tell me that anyways does not count as the stream just went down.
No, not at all. I've been saying that a heckin' lot. That's just one of my fallback sayings. Like, I have a habit of repeating a lot of things. Man, you're gonna hear "okay, so" a lot. I'm telling you right now.
I can't wait to see the playback.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, that was a solid run. Yeah, everyone give this man a follow. If you want to check him out, his Twitter is anti-Aaron. And yeah, no, this the stuff that he
The
does with
Twitch,
this
yeah,
game is something
yeah.
else.
I can't wait to co-op with you soon.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're that's definitely gonna be a fun time. Yeah,
Oh, it's
like I
gonna
said,
be.
I do plan on picking this up, and this is one of the things that we do intend on doing. So, yeah. Any shout outs
Yep.
you'd like to make, Aaron?
Shout out to the Contra community. Shout out to the Ninja Gaiden community because this is kind of a Contra Gaiden.
That's true. That's very true. I forgot to mention
And,
that.
and my Twitch is anti-Aaron, only one word. And hope to see you all, and I will and I can give you all tips, all tricks, everything that you need to know. I am here to help because this game is one of the best Contra games I have ever speedrun.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying that Konami, Arc System Works, if you ever plan on going back to this, just know that we are all for it. We are here for it. And I know I certainly would like to see a Steam port or Switch port of this game at the very least.
Yeah,
So anything that
yeah.
you can do for this game, please, please
Test
do
me,
so.
test me, because I need to basically do a run on every console. Is what I want to do.
Oh, that's going to be something, all right.
Give me a reason to buy a Switch.
There you go. All right. Well, I think that's going to be it for us. So,
All right.
yeah, we are just about done with day 2, and I believe Jayo is going to take it away. But aside from that, for Aaron and myself, thank you so much for tuning into Hardcore Uprising. This has been the Blindfolded Sayuri run, and until next time, we wish you all a wonderful day, afternoon, or evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Ciao, amici.
Ciao.